Grandpa's level wasn't heavy, just honest. The little glass bubble had faded to a smoky amber, but it still told the truth better than most people I knew. I found it wedged behind an old coffee tin labeled Shims plus Stubbs, inside a drawer I wasn't supposed to open until the house was sold. When my grandfather died, nobody cried at the funeral. Not even my mom. She wore black, but it felt more like a uniform than grief. I remember watching her fingers drum on the side of the pew during the priest's eulogy, like she was waiting for her latte order to be called. My younger brother, Kyle, was playing some game on his phone the entire time with the sound off. I'm pretty sure the only reason he looked up was to clap along when the bagpiper started playing Amazing Grace. I sat there in my only suit, the one I bought for job interviews I never got, and just kept my hands on my knees. Quiet, respectful, remembering. Grandpa had practically raised me while my parents worked overtime, and Kyle floated around from friend's house to soccer camp to whatever. And now all his stories, all his smells and creaks and tools and half-finished projects, they were being shoved into a 90-minute box with deli meat trays and lemon bars in a church basement. Afterward, nobody said anything about what was going to happen to his house, or his tools, or the garage, where he used to let me help on weekends while he explained things like leverage and torque and why Phillips head screws were invented to cam out before they stripped. He was the kind of guy who wouldn't just fix your sink. He'd explain how municipal water pressure worked while doing it. A few days later, my mom texted us, "Mom, house goes on market Monday. Clean what you want. Rest is going to charity." Mom, most of it is junk. No love you. No, does anyone want the birdhouse he built? Just junk. Just a line item on the to-do list of her life. I drove out the next morning. It was a gray, nothing-colored Thursday, with weather that felt like soup. Humid, thick air, like the sky forgot to shower. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Paint flaking on the eaves. The gate leaned. The grass had the defeated look of something nobody had touched in weeks. But the garage still stood solid, like it didn't care what season it was. I had brought 3 moving boxes and a roll of paper towels. I didn't know what I expected to find. Inside, it smelled like Grandpa, sawdust, old metal, a trace of motor oil and something sharper, maybe turpentine. The back bench was covered in tools, each one lined up like a museum display. Everything had a label in his handwriting. Bench chisel, 1963. Miller Bros, 14 Oz framing, handle split. Some had blue tape with "Sharpen Me" or broken. But even the broken ones looked dignified, like veterans. There was a small lockbox under the bench. Inside, receipts from the 80s, a matchy roll of quarters, and a note. If you're reading this, you're the only one who cared enough to look. Pick one tool. Use it, sell it, whatever. Just don't let it rot. It wasn't signed. He didn't have to. I spent 3 hours in that garage. I dusted. I sorted. I ran my fingers over wood handles worn smooth by decades of use. I found the old level near the end when I opened the misc drawer he always said was off limits. It was beautiful. Brass ends. Solid wood. No brand I could see. Just the initials RF carved small on the side. I took it home. Not because I needed it. I wasn't a contractor or even a weekend DIY guy. I lived in a rental and drove a dented Corolla with the back bumper zip-tied on. But it felt wrong to leave it there for someone to throw in a donation bin. I posted a photo online, more out of curiosity than anything. I didn't even price it. Just, inherited old level. Any idea what this is? The first comment came in 20 minutes later. Wood Wizard 43. That looks like a Randall and Finch precision level, 1890s. If it's real, it's worth serious coin. Don't touch it more than you have to. Serious coin? I thought the guy was messing with me. But then more comments rolled in. Some asking for close-ups, others arguing about condition, restoration, provenance. One guy sent me a private message offering $2,000 cash, no questions asked. I Googled. He was lowballing. That night, I sat in the dark with the level in my lap and the message still on my screen. I was behind on car payments. Not majorly, just 2 months, but I knew the third would trigger a repo warning. My job at the hardware store had cut my hours back again, and rent was due in 9 days. I thought about what Grandpa said. Use it, sell it, whatever. Just don't let it rot. I drove to the antique tool dealer the next afternoon. The place was downtown, tucked between a locksmith and a vape shop, with a sign that just said Tools in faded stencil font. The guy behind the counter was in his 60s, balding, and wearing a magnifier lens over one eye like a jeweler. I handed him the level wrapped in an old t-shirt. He didn't say anything for the first minute, just turned it over in his hands, ran a thumb down the side like he was checking for a pulse. Then he looked at me, real slow. You know what this is? Sort of. He nodded. You want cash or appraisal? Cash, I said. My voice cracked a little. He named a number. I swallowed hard. It was almost exactly what I owed on my car. I signed the papers. He gave me a receipt. I walked out lighter, not just in hands, but in guilt. Grandpa wouldn't have cared about some collector hanging his level on a wall. He cared about tools being used, helping, doing something. I paid off my car that weekend. Then I went back to the house. Not for more tools. I hadn't earned those yet, just to sit in the garage one more time. To breathe in the smell. To tell him thank you. It was 8:17 on a Monday morning. I was sitting in the parking lot of the DMV with a check stub in my pocket and the quiet satisfaction of not owing a dime on my car. That level, Grandpa's level, had done more for me in 48 hours than the last 2 years of minimum wage and unpaid overtime combined. I didn't go back to the house because of guilt. I went back because I started dreaming about the garage. Not like spooky ghosts and nostalgia hallucinations. I mean real, detailed dreams. Dreams where I was holding tools I didn't recognize but somehow knew how to use. Dreams where Grandpa would hand me a wrench, say, Lefty Lucy, and then disappear behind a pegboard door that didn't exist in real life. I'd wake up with the taste of oil in my mouth and the memory of pine dust in my nostrils. So yeah, I went back. The for sale sign was up this time. Kyle's car wasn't in the driveway, and there was a blue bin out front with masking tape labeled Goodwill, Living Room. I didn't bother with the front door. The garage had a side entrance Grandpa never locked. That latch had been rusty since Clinton was in office, but it still opened with the same firm clack. Inside, nothing had moved. Not a screw out of place, not a rag unfolded. Even the bulb over the workbench still gave off that dim yellow glow like it was powering itself on pride. I sat down on the stool, the one with the ripped vinyl seat and a burn mark from when Grandpa taught me how to use a soldering iron, and just listened. Tick of the wall clock, buzz of a fly somewhere in the rafters, and that feeling again, like something in the room was waiting. I got up. I didn't go for the drawers this time. I walked to the back wall. Behind the main shelf was a section of paneling I'd always thought looked off. Just slightly lighter than the rest. I'd asked Grandpa about it once, and he just said, every room needs a little mystery. I pushed. Nothing. Pried at the corner with my keys. Still nothing. Then I remembered something else. The stool. It had one uneven leg, and Grandpa used to keep a little block of wood under it to balance it out. I flipped it over. There, stapled to the bottom of the seat, was a key. The panel opened inward on a hinge so smooth it felt out of place in the creaky, arthritic old garage. Behind it was a shallow nook, no deeper than a suitcase, lined with dark velvet. And inside, resting like it was waiting to be passed down in a crown ceremony, was a toolbox unlike anything I'd ever seen. Matte black. Brass clasps, no logos, no tape. Just initials again, RF, Randall Finch, or someone else. I lifted it out carefully. It wasn't heavy, but it had presence. I set it on the bench and clicked it open. Inside were 6 tools. Each looked handmade. Not craft fair handmade. I mean precision built, like someone had poured their obsession into every curve and notch. A dovetail saw with a handle that fit my grip perfectly. A plane with an edge like glass. A compass divider with tension so responsive I could feel it humming in my fingers. And beneath them, a folded envelope, wax sealed. I didn't open it right away. Instead, I laid the tools out on a clean cloth, took photos, sent them to the same online group where I'd posted the level. Captioned it, "Any idea what these are? Found them behind a hidden panel. Look custom." The responses came in fast. One user, Backyard Bourbon, said, "That's a Finch Master Series. Legend says only 20 were made. All pre-WWOO. If real, this is Smithsonian tier." Another user, "Dude, that saw alone might be worth 10 grand. Don't clean them. Don't restore. Don't even sneeze on them." And one guy, JDS Chicago, messaged me directly. "I'm serious. If that's real, I'll drive out myself. Cash. Name your price." That's when I opened the envelope. It wasn't a letter. Not really. It was a single sheet of paper, typed. "If you found these, you understand. These tools aren't meant for collectors. They're meant for builders, makers, folks who turn nothing into something. If you're just here for the payday, take them and go. If you're ready to use them, really use them, then keep reading." Underneath was a line break. Then, in the corner of the garage is a green milk crate. Inside is a notebook and a list. That's where it starts. I turned around slowly. The crate had been there the whole time. I'd used it once to stand on to reach a loose light bulb. Inside, under a ratty moving blanket, was a leather-bound notebook with a pencil tucked in the spine. The first page had 3 words. Project 1, Table. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't list the tools. I didn't text anyone back. I read the whole notebook front to back. It wasn't just a list of projects. It was a curriculum. Tables, chairs, dovetail joints, joinery, finishes, all laid out with sketches, dimensions, margins full of Grandpa's handwriting. Mark twice, cut once, then mark again. Don't aim for perfect, aim for square. The wood tells you what it wants. Listen. It wasn't a plan for a sale. It was a plan for a life. I felt stupid for not seeing it sooner. He wasn't just a man who fixed stuff. He was a maker. A quiet, stubborn, generous builder who left behind a map, and no one cared enough to follow it. Except me. The next week, I cleared out half my living room, sold the TV, hauled in a sheet of MDF to use as a bench, bought clamps with the last $60 in my checking account. Every night after my shift, I opened that notebook and tried. I messed up a lot, cut things backward, got glue on the wrong faces, made a stool with 3 legs that all leaned in like they were whispering to each other. But it didn't matter, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't scrolling or doom watching or sitting in my car wondering how everything got so sideways. I was building, and the tools, they felt alive. Then, 2 weeks later, I got a knock on my door. It was Kyle. He looked worse than usual. Hair matted, eyes baggy, and his expensive hoodie hanging off him like he'd lost weight fast. "I need to talk," he said. I let him in. He didn't look at the workbench, Didn't notice the sawdust on the floor. Just sat down and exhaled hard. Mom's selling the house to someone named Dev Patel. Cash buyer. She said it's closing next Friday. I nodded. Makes sense. He shifted. She also said there's a shed in the back with old furniture. Stuff Grandpa built. She's planning to toss it unless someone grabs it. I stood up before I realized I had. That shed was locked the last time I checked. Kyle shrugged. Guess she found the key. I was already grabbing my coat. The shed was deeper in the backyard, half buried behind shrubs. When we got there, the door was wide open, but the inside was empty. Not stripped, ransacked. Tools scattered, sawhorses tipped over, a chair in pieces, a box of screws dumped out like someone was looking for something inside them. Kyle blinked. Wasn't me, man. I swear. But I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at the fresh set of tire tracks in the grass. Someone had beat me to it. Someone who knew exactly what they were after. The handle of Grandpa's dovetail saw felt cool against my palm, even though the sun had been up for hours. I held it tighter than I needed to, like gripping it might steady the knot twisting in my stomach while I stared at the wreckage in the shed. Whoever had been here didn't just steal. They tore through the place like they were angry at it, like the sawdust itself had insulted them. Maybe it was just junkies, Kyle offered behind me, his voice tentative. I shook my head. Then why leave the jigsaw and the clamps? Why take the folding chair and not the Makita? He didn't answer. I didn't expect him to. There were boot prints on the floor. Not work boots. Thinner, cleaner soles. Dress shoes, maybe. Someone methodical. I checked the corners, pulled up a tarp. Nothing left but a twisted nail and a hinge still swinging. Then I spotted it, a receipt, torn at the corner, stuck under a splintered box frame. It was from Denton's Hardware. Date, 3 days ago. Item, wood cleaner, wood filler, tongue oil, no name. Just paid cash stamped in the corner. I pocketed it. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of the shed, not even because someone had stolen things I could never replace. It was the why. Why now? Why those pieces? Why that particular timing? Right after I'd started building. Right after I'd opened the notebook. It didn't feel random. It felt targeted. I pulled out the old crate again and flipped through the pages of Grandpa's project journal. On page 17, next to the second table design, he'd scrawled, "Keep eyes on the shed. That's where they'll look first." I stared at it for a long time. Who was they? And what were they looking for? The next day, I drove to Denton's. It's one of those hardware stores that smells like dust and grease and mothballs. The kind of place where the floor creaks and the guy behind the counter has seen every tool you could ever break. Harold was working. Beard like steel wool. Always wore a pencil behind his ear, even though he hadn't used it in years. "Hey, you still got your camera working out front?" I asked. He squinted. "Depends who's asking." "Someone bought tongue oil here 3 days ago, paid cash, left a receipt in my grandfather's shed." Harold rubbed his chin. "You talking about the guy in the blazer? Looked like he was more at home in an office than a work site." I nodded slowly. He pointed at the back room. "Go look. Rewind to Thursday. I'll pretend I didn't see you." I didn't waste time. The footage was grainy, time-stamped. Thursday, 2:43 p.m. A tall guy, mid-40s, thin build, wearing slacks and a navy sport coat. Sunglasses on, polished loafers. He walked like he was avoiding puddles. He picked up 3 bottles, flipped through a few sandpapers, then paid cash. No name, no phone number, no customer card. But when he turned to leave, I caught the profile. Sharp nose, square jaw, slicked hair. I knew that face, not from real life, from a business card, tucked years ago into one of Grandpa's drawers next to a stack of warranty slips. Martin Langley, Estate Liquidation, Modern Antiques and Property Value Recovery. That's when it clicked. Langley had tried to buy Grandpa's garage collection 5 years ago. He'd come sniffing around when Grandpa had that first heart episode, said something about preserving legacy and ensuring fair market compensation. Grandpa had thrown him off the porch with a half-eaten apple in hand and muttered, "Buzzards circle before the body's cold." I drove straight to Mom's place. She was on the porch, cigarette in one hand, wine glass in the other. "You signed the sale papers yet?" I asked before even saying hello. She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "Langley, Estate Liquidation. He visited the shed, ransacked it. You didn't think to tell me?" She scoffed. "That old shack? It's falling apart. And I didn't call anyone. Maybe your brother did." "Kyle was with me when we found it empty." She sipped. "Well then, maybe it was the realtor. They're prepping the property. You're selling to a Dev Patel, right?" "That's what the agent said. Cash offer, over ask." I paused. "Did you meet him?" She went still. "No," she said slowly. "It was all through email, DocuSign. I didn't think." I didn't wait for her to finish. I was already in the car. Kyle was at his apartment, knee-deep in laundry and fast food wrappers. I told him everything. Langley, the shed, the fake buyer, the connection to Grandpa's tools. He rubbed his eyes. "So what? This guy used a fake name to buy the house and steal old furniture?" "Not furniture. Designs. The stuff Grandpa never put in the market. The shed was where he tested ideas. He didn't trust patents. Said they were invitations to be robbed." Kyle laughed, but it faded quick. "So what do we do? Call the cops?" "And say what? A guy bought a house legally, but also stole something we can't prove existed?" We both sat there, the weight of it sinking in. Then I remembered the crate. Specifically, a loose flap in the bottom I hadn't checked yet. Back at my apartment, I flipped the crate over, pried up the bottom layer with a screwdriver. Underneath, another envelope, this one thicker, heavier. Inside were pages, not notebook paper, vellum, each with graphite sketches, exact measurements, symbols I didn't recognize, almost mechanical, but more artistic. One looked like a chair, another like a segmented table that folded into itself like origami. They weren't just furniture plans. They were design patents, or the rough beginnings of them. And they were dated. All signed. RF. Grandpa hadn't just collected tools. He'd been building something bigger. A portfolio. A language. Maybe even a whole catalog of designs nobody had ever seen. And now Langley had pieces of it. I texted Harold, asked if he could print me a copy of the footage from the store. Then I called a friend of mine from high school, Rachel. She worked in appraisals now. I didn't know where exactly, but I remembered seeing her post something on LinkedIn about intellectual property valuation. I sent her 3 photos of the sketches. No context. Just, "Could these be worth anything?" She replied 5 minutes later, "Where did you find these?" "Are they real? Do not share them publicly until we talk." I called her. She answered before the first ring finished. "I've seen reproductions of the Finch archive," she said. "But if these are originals, you might be sitting on a gold mine." "How much?" "Depends. But if they were never registered, and you can prove lineage, mid-6 figures, easy. Maybe more if a collector sees brand potential." I stared at the wall for a second. Then I said, "Someone already stole one of the pieces." Rachel's tone shifted. "Then you've got 2 choices. Go to court or go public." I didn't say anything. She added, "But either way, you need to protect the rest immediately." That night, I slept with the crate next to my bed. I triple-locked the door, put the tools back in their slots, and wrote a name at the top of a fresh page. Langley. This wasn't about furniture anymore. This was about legacy, and I wasn't letting anyone steal Grandpa's name while I still had dust on my hands. Legacy isn't a garage full of junk, he said. It's what you leave behind that people can use. Langley said it like he was doing me a favor, like he hadn't broken in, ransacked the shed, and stolen something he didn't understand. I met him at a coffee shop near downtown. Neutral ground, public, daylight. Rachel had set it up. She told him I was a distant relative with a small claim and that I had some archival sketches to verify. That was bait, but it worked. He showed up looking like money. Sleek gray suit, perfectly groomed 5 o'clock shadow, Rolex peeking from under a cuff like a wink. The kind of guy who doesn't carry a wallet. Just a card that opens doors I'll never see. He slid into the booth like we were old friends and folded his hands neatly on the table. "So, Mum," he said, "you're the grandson." I didn't answer right away. Let the silence stretch. Let him fill it. "Your grandfather was a stubborn man, but visionary. I always said he was sitting on something special." "You tried to buy it 5 years ago." He smiled. "I made an offer. He declined. I respected that." "Then why break into the shed after he died?" His eyes narrowed, just slightly, the kind of twitch that would barely register if you weren't watching for it. "I was told the property was abandoned." "It wasn't." He leaned back. "Look, if this is about restitution, it's about theft." He held up both palms. "Let's not turn this adversarial. I'm here to make things right. If you have something, sketches, designs, I'm willing to compensate, generously." "You mean buy them before anyone finds out you stole the rest?" He laughed once. Cold. "Mr. Fletcher, be reasonable. The house is legally mine. The contents were unclaimed. And unless you can prove what was taken belonged specifically to you," I cut him off. "I can." I reached into my bag and pulled out the vellum folder. Not the original. Copies. Watermarked. Registered last night with Rachel's help under intellectual property claim number 2378 LF. Langley flipped through them, and for a moment, the mask slipped. He saw something in those designs that mattered more than resale value. He saw potential. Then he looked up. "How much?" I shook my head. "Not for sale." His jaw flexed. "That's a mistake. You already made yours." He left without another word. But I knew it wasn't over. That night, Kyle's car got keyed. My apartment buzzer rang at 3 a.m. No one there. An envelope was slipped under my door. No return address, just one sentence inside. "Don't get in the way of history." I showed Rachel. She called a friend in legal. Then she called a friend in media. "You're going to have to go public," she said. "Get the story out before he buries it." I nodded. "Let's do it." We filmed the video in Grandpa's garage, what was left of it. Kyle held the camera. Rachel interviewed me. I told the story. The tools, the hidden crate, the sketches, the notebook. I read from Grandpa's notes. I showed the original receipt from Denton's, the boot prints, the footage Harold had burned to a thumb drive. Then I laid out the designs on the old workbench, carefully, like I was putting together something sacred. Rachel asked me what I wanted. I said, "I want my grandfather's name remembered for what he made, not for what someone else tried to take. And I want these tools, this knowledge, passed down, not locked behind a collector's glass." He taught me how to build. Now I'm building something of his. We posted the video under the channel name Fletcher Tools. Within 72 hours, it had 44,000 views. Then 180,000. Then CNN emailed. Langley tried to get ahead of it, posted a statement through his firm's PR arm, claimed miscommunication, misunderstood property transfer, and respect for the legacy of American craftsmanship. It backfired. Comment sections lit up. People dug up his other shady deals, lowballing widows, flipping heirlooms, using shell companies to backdoor estate sales. The court of public opinion ruled fast, but it was Grandpa's sketches that hit the hardest. Woodworkers started tagging the designs. Makers posted tributes, videos of their own builds. One guy recreated the folding table from page 6 using only hand tools and called it the RF Revival. People wanted more, so I gave it to them. With Rachel's help, I launched a digital archive, the Randall Fletcher Collection. Free downloads, open source plans, a mailing list for updates. Within 2 weeks, I had enough donations to cover rent for 3 months. Then a sponsor reached out, a small tool company that loved the mission. They offered to fund a limited production run of Grandpa's original dovetail saw. Same specs, same wood, same weight. Called it the Legacy Edition. They wanted to pay me a licensing fee. I told them to put it in a trust for first-gen trade school students. Grandpa would have liked that. I visited his grave a few days later, brought a folding stool I'd made myself, first one that didn't wobble. I sat next to the headstone and read aloud, "Your tools weren't junk. Your shed wasn't clutter. Your life wasn't wasted. And your name won't be forgotten." The wind kicked up a little. Leaves scraped the gravel. It felt like a nod. Then my phone buzzed. It was Kyle. "You home? You might want to check your inbox." I drove straight back, heart thudding. When I opened my email, there it was. Subject, urgent, cease and desist, Langley Estate Partners. Attachment, 6-page legal PDF. He wasn't done. But neither was I. The printer started hissing before the first page even fed through. By the time it spat out the last sheet of the cease and desist letter, my inbox had already dinged again. New subject line, same sender. Langley wasn't just threatening me. He was coming for Grandpa's name. I read the whole thing twice before I said a word. Then I picked up the phone. Rachel answered on the first ring. "They're claiming I'm infringing on intellectual property he stole," I said. "He's saying I'm defaming his business by calling the tools part of my grandfather's personal archive." Rachel's voice was calm but tight. "Did he send that to the archive email or to you personally?" "Both," she sighed. "Okay, that's strategic. He's hoping to spook you into folding before you can challenge his claim." "Well, it's working. Don't let it." I sat down hard at the little plywood desk I'd built myself, the first thing I'd ever made that didn't fall apart. "Do I have a case?" "You have better than that. You have evidence." She was right. I had. The video of him at Denton's, the camera footage from the hardware store, the page from Grandpa's notebook mentioning the shed, the sketches with dates older than Langley's supposed patent applications, the receipt he left behind in the ransacked shed, and the original crate, with Grandpa's initials still carved in the wood. But the best thing I had, the community. By the time Rachel filed a counterclaim and sent our own legal response, the story had gone viral. A woodworking YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers did a breakdown of Grandpa's folding chair sketch and called it the most elegant hinge system I've ever seen in the wild. Another one tried to reverse engineer the segmented table and dubbed it Fletcher Geometry. Reddit had a field day. There were AMAs, fan builds, even memes. One person made a satirical ad for Langley Liquidation. "We don't steal your granddad's tools. We just misplace them creatively." Langley's PR firm dropped him within a week. The fake buyer name, Dev Patel, turned out to be connected to a Delaware LLC with ties to other shady estate sales Langley had orchestrated. Rachel's contacts in the press caught wind of it, and suddenly, I wasn't on defense anymore. The breakthrough came when an elderly man from upstate named Clark Jensen emailed me. Subject, I knew RF. He attached a photo. 2 young men in an old sepia tone image standing in front of a workbench. One of them was my grandfather. The other, a young black man in overalls, holding the same folding chair design I'd found in the shed. Clark said, "Your grandfather and my father, Eugene Jensen, used to build together. This was taken in 1942. They didn't patent their designs because they were worried someone would steal them. Not just for the money, but for the name. I still have some of the original sketches in our attic. My father signed them RF to protect both of them. He mailed them to me. Rachel had them authenticated within days. With those sketches and Jensen's sworn statement, Langley's legal claim collapsed. He settled out of court for a written retraction, full transfer of any disputed sketches, and a public apology, recorded and posted by his own firm. His estate liquidation license was suspended 6 months later. I used the momentum to launch something bigger. A small workshop in the east end of town, the Fletcher Bench, half museum, half makerspace. We host classes now, weekly build-alongs, a tool library, everything grounded in Grandpa's original methods. Kyle teaches there sometimes. Turns out, he's pretty good with lathe work. Once you get a screwdriver out of his hand, the original crate sits behind glass in the front room. The note from Grandpa taped inside, exactly as I found it. Use it, sell it, whatever. Just don't let it rot. We didn't. We built something. The Legacy Edition saw? It sold out its first production run in 4 days. But we didn't raise the price. We just made more. Each stamped with the initials RF and a serial number. The proceeds now fund a scholarship, the Randall Fletcher Makers Grant, for students who want to build furniture, design tools, or just learn with their hands. Every time someone downloads one of Grandpa's original plans, they get a short note at the top. This design comes from the legacy of a man who believed that craft should be shared, not sold. We hope you build something useful, something lasting, something yours. Sometimes I still dream about the garage, except now, in the dreams, Grandpa's not silent. He's watching, nodding, not because I turned his tools into something valuable, but because I finally understood what he was doing all along. He wasn't just fixing things. He was teaching me how to leave something behind that wouldn't rust. One night, I sat on the front steps of the workshop long after closing. The street was quiet. The air smelled like cedar and varnish. Kyle dropped down next to me with 2 beers. He handed me one, then tapped the rail beside us. "You think he'd be proud?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The bench beneath us didn't creak. It held. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.